Genesis chapter 16. Birth of Ishmael. Abram's wife Sarai had borne him no children. Now she had an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar. Sarai said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from bearing children. Have intercourse with my maid, perhaps I will have sons with her." Abram obeyed Sarai. Thus after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, his wife Sarai took her maid, Hagar the Egyptian, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. He had intercourse with her, and she became pregnant. As soon as Hagar knew she was pregnant, her mistress lost stature in her eyes. So Sarai said to Abram, "This outrage against me is your fault. I myself gave my maid to your embrace, but ever since she knew she was pregnant, I have lost stature in her eyes. May the Lord decide between you and me." Abram told Sarai, "Your maid is in your power. Do to her what you regard as right." Sarai then mistreated her so much that Hagar ran away from her. The Lord's angel found her by a spring in the wilderness, the spring on the road to Shur. And he asked her, "Hagar, maid of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?" She answered, "I am running away from my mistress Sarai." The Lord's angel told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her authority. I will make your descendants so numerous," added the Lord's angel, "that they will be too many to count." Then the Lord's angel said to her, "You are now pregnant, and shall bear a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heeded your affliction. He shall be a wild ass of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. Alongside all his kindred shall he encamp." To the Lord who spoke to her, she gave a name, saying, "You are God who sees me." She meant, "Have I really seen God and remained alive after he saw me?" This is why the well is called Bir Lahairoi. It is between Kadesh and Bered. Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son, whom Hagar bore him, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. Genesis chapter 17, the covenant of circumcision. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "I am God the Almighty. Walk in my presence and be blameless. Between you and me I will establish my covenant, and I will multiply you exceedingly." Abram fell face down, and God said to him, "For my part, here is my covenant with you. You are to become the father of a multitude of nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be called Abraham. For I am making you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fertile. I will make nations of you. Kings will stem from you. I will maintain my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout the ages as an everlasting covenant, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. I will give to you and to your descendants after you the land in which you are now residing as aliens, the whole land of Canaan as a permanent possession, and I will be their God." God said to Abraham, "For your part, you and your descendants after you must keep my covenant throughout the ages. This is the covenant between me and you and your descendants after you, that you must keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. Circumcise the flesh of your foreskin. That will be a sign of the covenant between me and you throughout the ages. Every male among you, when he is 8 days old, shall be circumcised, including houseborn slaves, and those acquired with money from any foreigner who is not of your descendants. Yes, both the houseborn slaves and those acquired with money must be circumcised. Thus my covenant will be in your flesh, as an everlasting covenant. If a male is uncircumcised, that is, if the flesh of his foreskin has not been cut away, such a one will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant." God further said to Abraham, "As for Sarai your wife, do not call her Sarai, her name will be Sarah. I will bless her, and I will give you a son by her. Her also will I bless. She will give rise to nations, and rulers of peoples will issue from her." Abraham fell face down and laughed as he said to himself, "Can a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Can Sarah give birth at 90? So Abraham said to God, "If only Ishmael could live in your favor." God replied, "Even so, your wife Sarah is to bear you a son, and you shall call him Isaac. It is with him that I will maintain my covenant as an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. Now, as for Ishmael, I will heed you. I hereby bless him. I will make him fertile and will multiply him exceedingly. He will become the father of 12 chieftains, and I will make of him a great nation. But my covenant I will maintain with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you." By this time next year, when he had finished speaking with Abraham, God departed from him. Then Abraham took his son Ishmael and all his slaves, whether born in his house or acquired with his money, every male among the members of Abraham's household, and he circumcised the flesh of their foreskins on that same day, as God had told him to do. Abraham was 99 years old when the flesh of his foreskin was circumcised, and his son Ishmael was 13 years old when the flesh of his foreskin was circumcised. Thus on that same day Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised, and all the males of his household, including the slaves born in his house or acquired with his money from foreigners, were circumcised with him. Genesis chapter 18. Abraham's visitors. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oak of Mamre, as he sat in the entrance of his tent, while that day was growing hot. Looking up, he saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the entrance of the tent to greet them, and bowing to the ground, he said, "Sir, if it please you, do not go on past your servant. Let some water be brought, that you may bathe your feet and then rest under the tree. Now that you have come to your servant, let me bring you a little food, that you may refresh yourselves, and afterward you may go on your way." "Very well," they replied, "do as you have said." Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, "Quick, 3 measures of bran flour, knead it and make bread." He ran to the herd, picked out a tender, choice calf, and gave it to his servant, who quickly prepared it. Then he got some curds and milk, as well as the calf that had been prepared, and set these before them, waiting on them under the tree while they ate. "Where is your wife Sarah?" they asked him. "There is the tent," he replied. One of them said, "I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent just behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years, and Sarah had stopped having her menstrual periods. So Sarah laughed to herself and said, "Now that I am worn out, my husband is old, am I still to have sexual pleasure?" But the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really bear a child old as I am?' Is anything too marvelous for the Lord to do? At that appointed time, about this time next year, I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah lied, saying, "I did not laugh because she was afraid." But he said, "Yes, you did." Abraham intercedes for Sodom. With Abraham walking with them to see them on their way, the men set out from there and looked down toward Sodom. The Lord considered, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Now that he is to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth are to find blessing in him. Indeed, I have singled him out, that he may direct his children and his household in the future to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord may put into effect for Abraham the promises he made about him." So the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, their sin so grave, that I must go down to see whether or not their actions are as bad as the cry against them that comes to me. I mean to find out." As the men turned and walked on toward Sodom, Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham drew near and said, "Will you really sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there were 50 righteous people in the city. Would you really sweep away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people within it? Far be it from me to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous and the wicked are treated alike. Far be it from you. Should not the judge of all the world do what is just?" The Lord replied, "If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Abraham spoke again, "See how I am presuming to speak to my Lord, though I am only dust and ashes. What if there are 5 less than 50 righteous people? Will you destroy the whole city because of those 5? "I will not destroy it," he answered, "if I find 45 there." But Abraham persisted, saying, "What if only 40 are found there?" He replied, "I will refrain from doing it for the sake of the 40. Then he said, "Do not let my Lord be angry if I go on. What if only 30 are found there?" He replied, "I will refrain from doing it if I can find 30 there." Abraham went on, "Since I have thus presumed to speak to my Lord, what if there are no more than 20? "I will not destroy it," he answered, "for the sake of the 20. But he persisted, "Please do not let my Lord be angry if I speak up this last time. What if 10 are found there? For the sake of the 10, he replied, "I will not destroy it." The Lord departed as soon as he had finished speaking with Abraham, and Abraham returned home. Genesis chapter 19, Destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. The 2 angels reached Sodom in the evening. As Lot was sitting at the gate of Sodom, when Lot saw them, he got up to greet them. And bowing down with his face to the ground, he said, "Please, my lords, come aside into your servant's house for the night, and bathe your feet. You can get up early to continue your journey." But they replied, "No, We will pass the night in the town square." He urged them so strongly, however, that they turned aside to his place and entered his house. He prepared a banquet for them, baking unleavened bread, and they dined. Before they went to bed, the townsmen of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, surrounded the house. They called to Lot and said to him, "Where are the men who came to your house tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may have sexual relations with them." Lot went out to meet them at the entrance. When he had shut the door behind him, he said, "I beg you, my brothers, do not do this wicked thing. I have 2 daughters who have never had sexual relations with men. Let me bring them out to you, and you may do to them as you please. But do not do anything to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof." They replied, "Stand back." "This man," they said, "came here as a resident alien, and now he dares to give orders. We will treat you worse than them." With that, they pressed hard against Lot, moving in closer to break down the door. But his guests put out their hands, pulled Lot inside with them, and closed the door. They struck the men at the entrance of the house, small and great, with such a blinding light that they were utterly unable to find the doorway. Then the guests said to Lot, "Who else belongs to you here? Sons-in-law, your sons, your daughters, all who belong to you in the city, take them away from this place. We are about to destroy this place, for the outcry reaching to the Lord against those here is so great that the Lord has sent us to destroy it." So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had contracted marriage with his daughters. "Come on, leave this place," he told them. "The Lord is about to destroy the city." But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. As dawn was breaking, the angels urged Lot on, saying, "Come on, take your wife with you and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away in the punishment of the city." When he hesitated, the men, because of the Lord's compassion for him, seized his hand and the hands of his wife and his 2 daughters and led them to safety outside the city. As soon as they had brought them outside, they said, "Flee for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere on the plain. Flee to the hills at once, or you will be swept away." "Oh no, my lords," Lot replied to them. "You have already shown favor to your servant, doing me the great kindness of saving my life. But I cannot flee to the hills, or the disaster will overtake and kill me. Look, this town ahead is near enough to escape to. It is only a small place. Let me flee there. Is it not a small place to save my life?" "Well then," he replied, "I grant you this favor too. I will not overthrow the town you have mentioned. Hurry, escape there. I cannot do anything until you arrive there." That is why the town is called Zoar. The sun had risen over the earth when Lot arrived in Zoar, and the Lord rained down sulfur upon Sodom and Gomorrah, fire from the Lord out of heaven. He overthrew those cities and the whole plain, together with the inhabitants of the city and the produce of the soil. But Lot's wife looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt. The next morning Abraham hurried to the place where he had stood before the Lord. As he looked down towards Sodom and Gomorrah and the whole region of the plain, he saw smoke over the land, rising like the smoke from a kiln. When God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham and sent Lot away from the upheaval that occurred when God overthrew the cities where Lot had been living, the Moabites and the Ammonites. Since Lot was afraid to stay in Zoar, he and his 2 daughters went up from Zoar and settled in the hill country, where he lived with his 2 daughters in a cave. The firstborn said to the younger, "Our father is getting old, and there is not a man in this land to have intercourse with us, as it is the custom everywhere. Come, let us ply our father with wine and then lie with him, that we may ensure posterity by our father." So that night they plied their father with wine, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, but he was not aware of her lying down or getting up. The next day the firstborn said to the younger, "Last night I lay with my father. Let us ply with wine again tonight, and then you go in and lie with him, that we may ensure posterity by our father." So that night too they plied their father with wine, and then the younger went in and lay with him. But he was not aware of her lying down or getting up. Thus the 2 daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. The firstborn gave birth to a son, whom he named Moab, saying, "From my father." He is the ancestor of the Moabites of today. The younger one too gave birth to a son, and she named him Ammon, saying, "The son of my kin," and he is the ancestor of the Ammonites of today. Genesis chapter 20. Abraham at Gerar. From there Abraham journeyed on the region of the Negev, where he settled between Kadesh and Shur. While he resided in Gerar as an alien, Abraham said of his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, "You are about to die because of the woman you have taken, for she has a husband." Abimelech, who had not approached her, said, O Lord, would you kill an innocent man? Was he not the one who told me, she is my sister? She herself also stated, he is my brother. I acted with pure heart and with clean hands, God answered him in the dream. Yes, I know you did it with a pure heart. In fact, it was I who kept you from sinning against me. That is why I did not let you touch her. So now return the man's wife, so that he may intercede for you, since he is a prophet, that you may live. If you do not return her, you can be sure that you and all who are yours will die. Early the next morning, Abimelech called all his servants and informed them of everything that had happened. And the men were filled with fear. Then Abimelech summoned Abraham and said to him, What have you done to us? What wrong did I do to you that you would have brought such great guilt on me and my kingdom? You have treated me in an intolerable way. What did you have in mind? Abimelech asked him. That you would do such a thing, Abraham answered. I thought there would be no fear of God in this place, and so they would kill me on account of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, but only my father's daughter, not my mother's, and so she became my wife. When God sent me wandering from my father's house, I asked her, Would you do me this favor? In whatever place we come to, say he is my brother. Then Abimelech took flocks and herds and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham, and he restored his wife Sarah to him. Then Abimelech said, Here my land is at your disposal. Settle wherever you please. To Sarah he said, I hereby give your brother 1,000 shekels of silver. This will preserve your honor before all who are with you, and will exonerate you before everyone. Abraham then interceded with God, and God restored health to Abimelech, to his wife and his maidservants, so that they bore children. For the Lord had closed every womb in Abimelech's household on account of Abraham's wife Sarah. God bless you.